Good morning. You know how when a parent goes on vacation and they've got a 16 or 17-year-old at home and they leave a long to-do list for the kiddos just to make sure they understand how things are going to go? I want to walk you through an exercise that I've been doing for my 13 years of ministry, and I do it silently so you don't often notice, but here's what happens. In Christian community, oftentimes there's music that's done in evangelical churches, and then completely separate songs that are done in progressive churches. And sometimes a song is put in one of the two camps simply because of one word. So the first gathering song we're going to do this morning is one of those songs. It's called Shine, Jesus, Shine. And if you would turn to your bulletin for just a second, this is me writing in the refrigerator so that when I'm gone, you know how to handle these. If you look at the second verse, the way it's written, I'll read it to you, and then I'll stop at the word that causes it to be put in a different camp. Lord, I come to your awesome presence, from the shadows into your radiance, by the... Usually that's the part where progressives go. Next. Well, here's how changing one word, you can sing and celebrate the very same concept. What would happen if you took the word blood and substituted the word love? That one word changes everything. So today, and that's a little to-do list. So if you're singing songs with the interim or someone down the road and they use a song that has a word that you're not in deep love with, guess what? Remember me, which will be a theme in next week's service, and make it your own. So with that, let's go ahead and stand up. For the blood crowd, the word blood is in the bulletin, but for the love crowd, that word will be projected at that point. So those who are able, I know we don't do this every week, but let's get the juices flowing, because we've got a great musician to start us, Fia. And let's sing together, Shine, Jesus, Shine.
Shine, Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us, set us free by the truth you now bring us. Shine on me, shine on me, shine, Jesus, shine, fill this land with the Father's glory, blaze, Spirit, blaze, set our hearts on fire, flow, river, flow, flood the nations with grace and mercy, send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. Lord, I come to your awesome presence, from the shadows into your radiance. By the blood I may enter your brightness. Search me, try me, consume all my darkness. Shine on me, shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine, fill the land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze, set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow, flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. As we gaze on your kingly brightness, so our faces display your likeness, ever changing from glory to glory. Mirrored here, may our lives tell your story. Shine on me, shine on me, shine, Jesus, shine, fill the land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze, set our hearts on fire, flow, river, flow.
That was a longer song, and I know standing is a challenge for some of you, and you're like thinking, I don't want to see Jesus right now. So go ahead and sit for the second gathering song, all righty? All right, but still, let's celebrate as we sit, we gather.
We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream a dream of love. We gather to celebrate. We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream the dream of love. If God be for us, what stand against us? If God be for us, we need not be afraid. We gather to celebrate. We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream the dream of love. We gather to celebrate. We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream the dream of love. If God be for us, what can stand against us? If God be for us, we need not be afraid. We gather to celebrate. We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream the dream of love. We gather to celebrate. We gather to praise our God. We gather to dream the dream of love.
You're sounding good this morning. I love it. Every week that we gather here at Woodland Hills Community Church, and I, Craig Peterson, as your pastor, we always start by grounding us in who and how we are. We are a just peace community, which means harmony and peace in interpersonal and international relations is a defining trait. We are a progressive church, which means we don't have to denigrate or deny the faith of another person or an entire faith tradition in order for us to follow the ways of Jesus. In fact, we follow Jesus best when we love most inclusively. And finally, we are an open and affirming community. And while that was an intentional welcome born to welcome our LGBTQIA plus siblings, it extends to all segments of the community. For we know that the space is made most sacred when you are your full and authentic self. And this weekend, we were reminded how important living out those values are. You know, we think that just because we're in a big city, in a blue city like LA, that we've got it made. We're not like Mississippi or Kansas or other places. And yet, about 10 days ago, a 16-year-old member of the LGBTQIA plus community ended his life because of the bullying and targeting that he had received here, not just in Los Angeles, but here in Woodland Hills. So it reminds me how important it is that we show, as you will see in Larry's piece later, our true colors. And even Gina, as a part of the celebration, put the flowers in the color of the trans flag, the light blue or powderish blue, the pink and the white, all ways of celebrating each and every amazing life. And you know, the most powerful part yesterday was the way our welcome extends to other communities. There was a woman in her 50s, and she came up with her daughter, and she said, "I have never worshiped or gone to a Christian church in my life. I never felt safe." And she said, "I'm a Jewish woman, and today's service was beautiful." That is the sort of witness and welcome that we manifest here in the Valley. And so please, whether I'm here or on another coast, never lose sight of what a difference those values make. So in celebration of those values and the God that we know through Christ, I'll invite you to stand as you are able, and Deb and I will lead you in today's wonderful call to worship. And yes, I did say the S word, and no, it's not sin, it's stand. All right. They're pretty closely related for some of us. Here we go. Friends, we celebrate because the Lord stood by us on difficult days.
Even when we weren't aware.
We celebrate because the Lord gives strength.
Even when we feel so weak.
We celebrate because we have been rescued again and again.
Even when we are afraid that we have lost.
Come and celebrate the God who stands with us in our darkest days and promises to be with us to the end.
We will celebrate in hope, seeking eyes to see and hearts to believe in God with us.
So from our very earliest days in the faith, when we were baptized and celebrated that identity, for those of us who have, we've entered into a life of relationship and covenant, and now we're going to celebrate it as we sing What a Covenant. Feels good, especially in a challenging weekend like this, of the things we've walked through, to be reminded. So as we welcome those rays of light in this morning, our kiddos, I'm going to invite Fia and Wayne to help us lead them in as we sing a chorus of This Little Light of Mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,
Avengers, assemble! Welcome from CYM, now known as the Avengers. Today we are going to talk about, again, we're doing a series on prayer and the mighty power of prayer. Again, I have this book. It's one of many at the dollar store, my little book of Dear God letters. And what we're discussing with the children is that you can pray about anything. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be the words that you want to say. So I'm going to share 2 prayers, and then as promised, the children and I are talking about sandwiches today. Dear God, a friend is always there to take your call. God does not use voicemail. He doesn't have call waiting. God never puts you on hold. God answers me whenever I call him. If I want to talk to God, all I have to do is listen to his voice. I can ask him about anything. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is wait. God doesn't always give me what I ask for, but he always gives me what I need. And one more. Dear God, I need your help. Math tests, writing tests, all through life, there are going to be tests. In school, you have to listen in class and you have to do your work well. God will help you remember what you have learned. Tests don't have to be scary. If you are faithful in doing your part, God will help you do your best. And even out of school, can anybody, maybe by show of hands, have you ever been tested? And God just helps you do your best, right? He just helps you do your best. So we are going to head out. But first, I want to show you one more of our Avenger moves. Stand up. Ready? We ready? Wakanda! Forever! Thank you guys so much.
They are avenging things like injustice, bigotry, and violence. That's wonderful. You know, there's that old saying in the world that there are 2 kinds of people: those that see the glass as half empty and half full. And you know, that is such a challenge for us as pastors, because I've learned there are some personality types that no matter what you throw at them, they will only see absence or shortage. And it's been a challenge for progressive churches. The United Church of Christ, there was a wonderful devotional a couple weeks ago that said in the 5,000 congregations, most congregations have had about 30% of folks return from the pre-COVID days. That's the average. And if you're lucky, it's 50%. And we're bumping up in that 50% norm. But it's been so important for me because at WHCC, we kind of keep our head down and we kind of sometimes feel sorry for ourselves. We're kind of focusing on the negative stuff. And my job has been half full, half full, half full for 13 years. Woohoo! And since I'm not going to be here that much longer, I'm going to have to help us increase our capacity so that I'm not the only half-full folk in the community. So today, as we think about the glass, or in this case, a different kind of glasses is my visual cue, the lens that we see the world. Is it through one of scarcity or abundance? Because it's the same world, but a very different set of glasses that we can use. So to prepare our hearts for the message today, I'm going to invite us into 2 minutes of silence. And you can use that for prayer, meaning talking to God, or meditation, listening, or opening, however you use it. Let's clear space for God to be at work in our hearts. So as I was talking with one of the family members of the teenager whose life ended yesterday after service, you can imagine it wasn't an easy conversation. But when we got to the how am I going to make it part, I said something to that parent that is really at the essence of my call to ministry and my passion for 20 years of serving ONA churches. I said, if you can take one thing away from this, you will know that your child was fully known before they took their last breath. So many of us are never fully known. And what a gift for a 16-year-old to have received. So as we think of what it means to be fully known, what it means to show up at church, not dressed in our Sunday best. You may have wondered over these years why I don't robe or wear jackets. I do that very intentionally theologically. I'm one of you. I'm not set apart or different. I want you to see my true colors. And so to celebrate that today, our special music is a rendition of that gorgeous Cyndi Lauper song, True Colors. I honor it with Mars' memory, and I use it as an invitation for all of us to show our true colors.
We came yesterday to the service. We came yesterday to the service from Mars. Didn't know him, but came to support the family and others that were here. Even though we may know this melody, the lyric is really powerful, so I wanted to read that to you. You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged. Oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people You can lose sight of it, and the darkness inside you makes you feel so small. But I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful, like a rainbow.
Thank you, Larry. And thank you all for participating in the process of creating a community full of true colors. Some may think that the only commentaries we pastors consult when preparing sermons are academic resources that are found in places like books, articles, or websites. Now, while those resources are helpful in preparing our remarks to a degree, I've found years ago that there's another thing that always gives me the insights I need that's not found in print. The most valuable resource is in the life experiences of both myself and my congregants. And boy, this last week was a perfect example. For as I spent a good deal of time trying to figure out what to say at the celebration of life for a young person who had taken their own life, I stumbled upon a powerful interpretation of a familiar and well-loved passage, 1 Corinthians 13, a passage called the love chapter that ends with those famous and soaring words. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So this week, as I read that sentence I had seen hundreds of times over the years against this particular backdrop, I finally got why the Apostle Paul ended the chapter the way he did. For the apostle knew that there would be times in all our lives where faith seemed impossible, especially in days following an incident like that. The Apostle Paul knew that there would be times when even hope would seem impossible given one's circumstance. So while those things may be a little fleeting at times, Paul knew that one thing, love, is always there, whether we realize it or not, as close as the air we breathe. I will never read that chapter the same way again because of this week. And I had a similar experience preparing this morning's remarks as well. For if you read most of the academic literature on this week's parable, it would tell you that the parable is about humility. Now, that theme is obviously there, as you're about to hear, but as I prepare to leave you next week and each of us embarks on a new chapter of our own lives, my life experience told me that this parable is about something more than just humility. So listen as Deb reads the passage, and then let's come back together and see if we can figure out what that more is.
Jesus told this parable to certain people who had convinced themselves that they were righteous and who looked on everyone else with disgust. Two people went up to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed about himself with these words, God, I thank you that I am not like everyone else, crooks, evildoers, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of everything I receive. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even lift his eyes to look toward heaven. Rather, he struck his chest and said, God, show mercy to me, a sinner. I tell you, this person went down to his home justified rather than the Pharisee. All who lift themselves up will be brought low, and those who will make themselves low will be lifted up.
And thus ends the sacred reading. So, have you figured out what, besides humility, this passage is all about? Well, let's see if I can help by cutting right to the chase. In helping us with that question, Marjorie Proctor Smith had this to say. The problem in the parable is not the Pharisees' religious observance or piety, but rather his inability to see and name. Pause while you take a deep breath because you aren't going to maybe like it. It's his dependence on God. Let me say that one more time altogether. The problem in the parable was the Pharisees' inability to see and name his dependence on God. And wow, is that a lesson that has so much to offer all of us in this particular moment of our lives? Let me tell you why I say that, and to do so, I'll give you just a wee bit of background. For those of us who were raised in the middle class, virtually every element of our world tells us that the key to success is, well, us. We learned certain cliches that reinforced it. Things like, if it's to be, it's up to me. Or even a quote that some like to attribute to the Bible, but it's not there, folks. It's from Benjamin Franklin that says, God helps those who help themselves. And so as we grow up, we finish our schooling and get that job, nearly all aspects of our lives are built on the illusion of self-sufficiency. We work hard at our job, assuming that if we are good enough, we can provide for ourselves and our family. We invest our money carefully, believing that our portfolio alone is the key to security in the future. We agonize as we fill out our ballots, telling ourselves that if we just elect all of the right people, that all of our problems will be fixed. And we exercise and eat right, knowing that if we just take care of ourselves, we'll live a long and healthy life. In other words, at every twist and turn of our waking hours, without even realizing it, we slide into the same position of the Pharisee. Quick to tick off our list of accomplishments and why we are so amazing. And in that process of constructing a life based on self-sufficiency, we unknowingly change our concept of God. For instead of making God the very one in whom we live and move and have our being, God instead becomes sort of a knickknack or novelty that we tuck away on the shelf in our living room or bedroom. One that we might occasionally bring off the shelf and dust when we really want or need it. But otherwise, we don't think as much about God as we could. But then, that something happens, something that takes us to our knees. And in those times, sometimes we develop what some would call a crisis of faith. But you know what? I've learned something fascinating about those crises of faith over the past 20 years of parish ministry. You see, we tell ourselves that these crises represent our disillusionment with God. But if you really dig deeper, often what we're trying to cover or hide is a disillusionment with self. As supposedly self-sufficient folks, we torture ourselves in isolation, saying, "How could I let that happen?" We spend years reliving those difficult moments, trying to figure out what we should have done to head it off, as if we were God. Have any of you ever done that? Or maybe it's just me. Well, that's where the good news of the parable comes in, friends. For as much as we like to think of ourselves as sufficient like the Pharisee, this morning's parable reminds us that the absolute key to a satisfying, peaceful, and joy-filled life lies in acknowledging that we are not in control of the universe. And the tax collector got that. The simple prayer of the tax collector, 8 words, God, show mercy to me, a sinner, is powerful, Marjorie Proctor Smith notes, because of its candor, simplicity, and absolute trust in God's mercy. And if a person is ever going to lift a prayer like the tax collectors, Smith notes, then the person will have to, and I quote, be willing to stand before God without excuse, without special pleading, without expectations, portfolios, or even resumes. In other words, without a single claim on anything except God's love and mercy. Now, I know you progressives pretty well after 20 years. And there are 2 words that make you choke in that prayer: sinner and mercy. So let me see if I can help you think about them in new ways so you don't slam the door in the prayer. My favorite definition of what sin and sinners are all about comes from the most influential theologian of the 20th century, Karl Barth. And this is how simple he made it. He said that sin happens whenever a finite being confuses itself with the infinite. Whenever the creation tries to cast itself as creator. Isn't that a wonderful definition? And then, if we go down that path, a healthy understanding of mercy can grow from it. For mercy has to do with our ability to do and to see what the Pharisee couldn't, to acknowledge or recognize that we need help, that we can't do it on our own. And once you begin to think in these new ways, everything in life changes. Take the congregational gathering after church this morning as an example. Now, a church that is built on the ways of the Pharisee will have a conversation about the budget that is entirely based on numbers. It will line things out. It will tell the group where we stand, and it will issue proclamations about where those numbers and trends are going to take us. Now, such a single-minded approach might make sense if our future depended only on us. But if we have a conversation after service that's based on the approach of the tax collector, talking about the same things will be changed forever. We'll still talk about numbers and trends. Don't worry about that part. But it'll happen with a different set of glasses on. We'll do so with the understanding that as finite creatures, there is only so much we can control. Can you imagine us 2.5 years ago saying, okay, we're going to have a global pandemic and here's how it's going to go down, and whew. So with that in mind, once we realize it's not only about us, we can do what I've been trying desperately to get you to do for 13 years. Let go of the angst and the anxiety. And trust that if we do our part by showing up and contributing as best we can, guess what? So will God. And that may not show in the budget line item. And that, friends, is the key to a satisfying, peaceful, and joy-filled life that I spoke of earlier. And that is the only reason that I have been able to stand before you for 13 years in the annual pledge drive and have those conversations. For nearly every one of those 13 years, We started the conversation that was predicated on projected deficits and dire predictions. And every year but one, at the end of the year, the balance sheet was colored with black and not red. And then we go on in that same cycle. But in doing so, in nearly killing me at times, that lesson that you taught me about recognizing and celebrating a complete dependence on God, not self, gave me the ability to do something that I could have never done 13 years ago. To step away from a call and a group of people that I love dearly. To get rid of almost everything so that everything this 55-year-old owns will fit in a 2018 Toyota Corolla. And then drive in 8 days 2,800 miles to live in a state that I've only spent 4 days in. I could have never done any of that if it was only about me. And because of you and the ways that you have stretched and filled my heart with joy and my blood pressure with extra pumps, I'm able to celebrate, get this, my finiteness. And I can claim that I can't do it on my own. Thank you for helping me see that in new ways. And friends, if a thick-headed control freak like me, prone to delusions of self-sufficiency constantly, can have his life transformed and turned into an expression of that tax collector's prayer, then so too can you. So as each of us go forward to begin the next chapter of our lives, may we do so with the bold and audacious certainty that our future is bright. It can't be contained on a line item of a budget, for it lies in the hands of one far greater than you or I. And for that I say, thanks be to God. Amen. So, friends, as I prepare for this time of prayers of the people, and I look out, again, one of the things they never taught us in seminary when we were using commentaries is looking out and seeing the stories and the lives of the people. I look at the pews this morning, and I know that you've all lived through things that you never thought you could have lived through. I'm so proud of you because I know you didn't do it on your own. I know where you turned, and you inspire me. And I'll have pictures and knickknacks and novelties of those stories. So as we come to the table today, we come knowing that that is the ultimate celebration, that we are not alone, that it's not up to our resource. We come to table starved to the bottom of our bodies and souls, knowing that here at table we can receive where we can get nowhere else. God's love and mercy. So friends, as we come today, I want to lift the joys and concerns that were shared in the prayer card, and Bill and Wayne, if there's any electronically to factor in, we'll do that as well. So the first thing that we bring with us to table is from the Wilkins family, who prays for their dear friend Gavin S. and his family. Gavin was taken into hospital on Friday night. Their prayers are that he remains stable, and again, in an amazing way, they lift prayers of gratitude for his doctors, even at that time of need. The next prayer card says, continued prayers for quick recovery of Allison's husband, Rob. He's a beloved part of the community, as is Allison, as he is recovering in the hospital. So continued prayers. And the next prayer comes from Joan. I would like to express my gratitude for your prayers and the excellent care I received while hospitalized. Thankfully, he is home and recuperating. Joan, is this for Chris? Chris, yes. Excellent. So prayers of thanks for support for Chris. And this weekend, I wanted to really lift up all those who've gone through experiences like the family. The one thing about what we've lived through as a community this weekend is there are still things in the 21st century that some think it's not okay to talk about, and suicide is one of those. And so I pray that we can all be together, love on each other, and if we don't know what to say in those moments, we can always simply offer a ministry of presence, a hug, and for 8 more days, Pastor Craig would love to talk. So friends, we gather not alone but together, and as we do so, we'll go into a time of prayer through Sung Deep Peace, that song, and then after which those who'd like to receive the elements can come forward to do so. Let us go to God.
Peace, peace, stay peace. My peace I give to you. Peace, peace, stay peace. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, I give to you. Not as the world gives, I give to you. Peace, peace, stay peace. My peace I give to you.
Gracious God, We gather today with hearts that are full of so much. As I said at the outset of the sermon, we come from paths that have had challenges that sometimes can make us feel cut off or separate from our faith. Challenges that can seem to extinguish the light of hope. And yet this day we give thanks that no matter what happens to us, that your love and your grace abide and work in and through us, no matter where we are. And we give thanks that the ultimate expression of our faith is always, I repeat, always in life and not suffering or death. So as we claim in the spirit of the tax collector's prayer, your love and mercy, we give thanks for all of the ways that you have reconnected us with that love. Through a hard-to-open wafer in that sealed packet, through the juice at the bottom of the cup, and through a prayer that Jesus left with his beloved, a prayer that we now lift together, praying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So as we culminate today, we always culminate by giving you a way of channeling your energies. One of which is to financially contribute or support the ministries of this church. Now, I'm going to leave you with classic Craig here. This goes back to the glass half full. If I were to tell you a couple things, I want you to sit with this. Giving to date is $25,803.85 ahead of projection. That is 14%. Expenses are $15,606.63 below projection, 5% lower. And the good news is that our projected deficit is 37% than it was expected to be. Is that pretty cool? Let's hold that for just a second. Now, the glass is not filled to the tippy top, so there's still a ways to go. But you notice how that feels when we start by celebrating? Pretty darn good. Does it make us feel a little more able to do what's before us? I don't know about you, but it does me. So when I'm gone, channel that. I'll tell you why, because there's a song I'm going to play for you in a minute that I want you to never play again, because I'm tired of the tune. But the other ways, other financially, is the next slide here. You can, to stay connected and know where we stand, you can join our email list by texting WHCC to 42828, or visit our website, and that page, especially in the first days of my departure, will be the lifeline. So everything that's happening goes there. Now, when I was little, I heard a song on a TV show called Hee Haw. I didn't like Hee Haw much, but I got so tired of hearing a variation of this song, and here's how that song goes. And I know we'll have copyright claim issues, so they're going to edit this out, but if you do one thing for Pastor Craig, stop singing this. Oh no, there's no audio? There was this morning.
Sing it, Pastor Craig.
Well, we're going to try it because it's just too classic, especially for the youngins who've never had a chance to experience it. They must have stripped it. Anyone know how that goes? You want to sing? 2, 3, 4. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep down depression, excessive misery. Oh, if I have no luck at all. Oh, despair and agony on me. We sing that in a lot of congregational meetings, in some form of that. So, here's what I'm going to do. This is my first aspect of turning things over to stamp that out. Those of you know that last year I made a purchase because I needed to balance what I called the Eeyore energies with the Pooh. I can't play this role anymore, and I'm terrified that it might go unfilled. So I need one of you to volunteer to be that voice of hope. And you get the Pooh suit with it. But you have to promise to bring it to church. That's the only condition. We have a taker. Emma. And I want you to know I'm never seeking to minimize the challenge. They're real, and DWP doesn't receive warm, fuzzy pictures of Pooh as payment. So there's some work to do, but just remember, get your Pooh on. All righty. So with that, we're going to end today with the ultimate song to sing to those who would cast themselves in the role of Pharisee, who think that it's all about them and what they can do and taking care of ourselves. This is kind of a flipping the bird to that. It reminds us that there's a lot more to that. Can you tell I have short timers? It's like, what are you going to do, fire me? So maybe. So with that, let's go ahead and finish with God will take care of you. And let's make this, raise the roof, to use the name of a fundraiser from a couple years. Stand if you're able, and let's rock out to this essential truth.
God will take care of you.
Bill, what's the next slide? Oh, there isn't. I just like it. So as a side commentary, I'm going to challenge you to break a record. Every congregational meeting, at some point, everyone says, if things don't improve, then the doors will be shut by, usually it's about 18 months out. The record is we made it about 12 minutes in 2012 before that was said. So let's see if we could do one of the meetings with a radical new approach. All right? Are you up for it? All righty, I think you are. So friends, the good news is what I'm saying isn't just about church budgets or community life, it's about the whole of our lives. Because when the going gets tough, we tend to slide into the thinking of the Pharisees that it's all about us and our ability to manage or endure. So the good news of that simple prayer of the tax collector is it's about so much more than us. We have so much more support than we realize. So find your way there. And I will see you back here, same time, same place. It's going to be a little bit of a longer service to try to observe and celebrate 13 years. May not fit in 60 minutes. Might go 75, but we'll do it. So with that, let's go with God this week, and Thea will lead us in the singing of our chorus on Eagle's Wings. And everybody stay who to participate in and to the celebration. Here we go.
And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of God's hand. And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of God's hand.
And the fun and warm gathering is simply just to present a broad stroke of the budget and for those who want to participate and set up the pledge drive. And Julie and Kevin will be leading, and they are every bit as good as anyone on Hee Haw. And then some. We'll see ya.